Welcome, everyone. This is Sandra McGilvray with the PDRI for Manufacturing and Life Sciences Waiting Workshop. This is a repeat of the introduction that was conducted for our September 14th virtual session. During today's workshop, we introduced CII's Manufacturing and Life Sciences PDRI template that was funded through the Manufacturing and Life Sciences Sector Committee to accelerate innovation in front-end planning. This is a new PDRI template that has been prepared in this area. And this is an open invitation to industry professionals to help us review this new PDRI template and provide input on weighting for each element. CII is a research-based institution that's based at the University of Texas in Austin. It's a combination of a group of leading owners, contractors, and academics that are working in collaboration to advance the business effectiveness and sustainability of the world's capital facilities. The purpose of the Construction Industry Institute is to achieve measurable improvements through our research and implementation tools that help improve the delivery of capital facilities. Our mission is that everything that we produce should help enhance business effectiveness and sustainability of the capital facility life cycle. And we want to help everyone expand their global competitiveness through these efforts. CII's history dates back to its founding in 1983 with 28 organizations. Today, that organizational membership is over 140 and structured with both non-owner contractors as well as academic research collaboration and the research that's done. With 142 members and 55 participating universities, the organization has been able to produce over 700 research products since its inception. Currently, we have 18 active research teams that are focused in areas that have been nominated by the membership of CII. There are also 14 standing committees and hundreds of active participants. The core functions within CII are: number one, to conduct research. Secondly, to focus on implementation so that members get value from all the research that's completed. We also focus on personal development for our membership, performance assessment and benchmarking, and knowledge management of the vast information that has been developed over the years. To get us started for our weighting workshop, we're going to do a quick review of the Project Definition Rating Index so that we can put everything in context that's introduced today. PDRI is a methodology that was developed by the Construction Industry Institute to measure the level of scope definition. It helps us do a comprehensive review of scope. It helps us identify gaps in front-end planning and helps us take appropriate action that will reduce risk for our projects before they go to full funding approval. One of the most common questions that we get is, why is PDRI critical? And why would the manufacturing and life sciences sector be focused on further improvements in this tool set? The most compelling reason to start and use PDRI is the improvements that our members have consistently seen in capital project performance. This comes in both cost savings and schedule reductions. And over the years, we've seen PDRI benchmarked on over $96 billion worth of projects. The second reason that the manufacturing and life sciences sector is focused on this is a proven ability to increase stakeholder alignment. And third, we know that this is a process that helps us provide transparency on risk, specifically before projects go for full funding approval. A few things to introduce that have not changed as we go through the weighting workshop today. The PDRI template we will introduce today is intended to be used at the same points of application as all other PDRI templates that have been released. It's intended that it can be applied at the end of feasibility stage, at the end of concept, as well as at the end of detailed scope, and of course can be used in major capital projects that have an extensive detailed scoping phase and may use that 2I or intermediate step for assessment. What we'll see as we take a deeper dive into the PDRI for manufacturing and life sciences is it's taken a blend of both industrial and project templates that have been developed over the years. Just to note, there is an additional template for infrastructure projects which was not incorporated into the scope of this project. We've pulled forward element descriptions that include considerations for both greenfield and brownfield projects, as well as using some of the work that's been done to consolidate elements and in research that was done for small industrial and small infrastructure projects. The scoring system also remains consistent, and that the PDRI template you'll evaluate today has a maximum score of 1,000 points. And again, our intent is that the lower the score, the better, just like golf. Traditionally, we've seen that PDRI scores of less than 200 represent well-defined projects, and these are the ones that statistically perform better in terms of budget and schedule and change orders. Part of this research effort will be to validate that that is the right score for this template as well. You'll also see consistency in terms of how this PDRI template is structured by section, category, and element. The three sections remain the same as all other PDRI templates, with the basis of project decision, the basis of design, and the execution approach. The definition levels also remain the same, and I'll highlight three that become important for our weighting exercise today. First of all, if you have an element that is not applicable to the project, in the weighting workshop, you'll want to mark that as not applicable as well. The other two areas that we'll focus in on are projects that are elements that are completely defined, meaning everything has been completed and accurately documented, and no further work is required before full funding approval. The other score that we'll focus in on is a 5, or poor definition, meaning little or no thought has been given to the element. The other thing that remains consistent from our research team's work is acknowledging that we want to continue to support the uses of PDRI that we see in the industry today. Many organizations that start with the tool set will start by using it as a checklist. As they become more comfortable with it and start to conduct collaborative PDRI evaluation sessions, that's where they start to benefit from stakeholder alignment. This tool set is also intended to be able to help you measure progress in a quantitative manner. And finally, we want to see a tool that is robust and gives you confidence that it's going to be a very effective gate deliverable to use to assess the level of scope definition in manufacturing projects. One of the things that will come out of the research that we do with this project is establishing the target scores that are appropriate for this new template. The target scores by different application points with PDRI, these have been the ones that were used for both industrial and building that are inputs into our process, but we'll be confirming this as part of our validation step. So let's talk a little bit about the PDRI for manufacturing and life sciences. Back in May of 2017, a research team was formed by the manufacturing and life sciences sector to answer this essential question, and that's that they had seen PDRI being used as an effective tool for measuring project scope definition and assisting in improving alignment between project participants. But how could the sector look at projects that are both a mix of industrial and building scope and effectively use PDRI tools? When our members saw projects that had both an industrial scope as well as a building or a facility scope, it wasn't really practical to use two different PDRI templates and conduct two PDRI sessions. So how could we do a better job of assessing those? The good news is that this type of project allows us to build on the successful basic research that's been done over the past number of decades. And the two inputs that became very critical in this advanced development project were RT-133 for PDRI industrial projects and RT-155 for PDRI building projects. These were used as a foundation on which this research team could adapt that research for the specific use in the manufacturing sector. Our research team members included a strong representation from both owners and contractors that were part of this sector group. Overall, our research team's objective was to bridge the gap for the manufacturing and life sciences sector by bringing the best of breed from our PDRI industrial and PDRI buildings template, as well as considering any other similar checklists the tools for front-end planning that would add value to this industry-specific template. What we found in going through and building the template that you'll review today is that although we started our mission by dealing with these projects that are a mix of both industrial and building scope, we did successfully create a new category within the basis of design that you'll get a chance to review around building programming and design parameters. But we also found that there were a number of other topics that in the 20+ years since PDRI Industrial was originally written, these have now become important and needed to be added for a full assessment of scope in 2017. Some of these areas include facility portfolio coordination, how we deal with project funding and cost estimates, the fact that IT and telecom considerations were pervasive in most of our projects, other basis of design considerations specific to manufacturing, including airflow and instrumentation diagrams, containment and isolation considerations, loss prevention and insurance considerations, and enterprise and control systems around the automation topic. And finally, we have a few topics in our execution approach that were needed as well, around commissioning, qualification, and validation requirements specific to manufacturing, and environmental and safety procedures. There were also a number of topics that were expanded to represent change that had happened in the industry since the original PDRI Industrial was written. These topic areas where you'll see some substantial additions include the process and mechanical, project controls, engineering and construction plan, our pre-commissioning and turnover sequence, and startup requirements. The team also found some opportunity to consolidate elements and used a lot of the great work that had been done by PDRI small industrial and small infrastructure teams to show how this could be done very efficiently. You'll see these areas reflected in our project philosophies element, our project objectives and strategy, and an element that consolidates a number of the lists within basis of design. The methodology that the team has followed to develop the template that you'll have an opportunity to review today started with our development of the PDRI elements. This has allowed us to draft the element list and the descriptions that you have provided to go through this weighting exercise. To date, we've conducted 2 weighting workshops, and we're looking forward to your individual inputs to ensure that we have as broad of industry participation as possible. In the month of October, we'll be finalizing our PDRI element descriptions and the final Excel score sheet that it'll be used as the basis for this project. That'll allow us to conduct validation testing, where we use the final template to test against real projects that have been executed in the manufacturing and life sciences sector. The results from that validation testing will provide that final input for us to develop our supporting publications to roll out this new PDRI template. So let's get on to the specifics of how the weighting workshop was conducted and the instructions we can give you to successfully do this in an offline mode. The purpose behind the weighting workshop comes back to the fact that in all of our PDRI templates, you'll see that the elements are not equally weighted. They're weighted based on the importance that they pose to successful project delivery. And each element needs to be weighted relative to each other so that those are accounted for properly. And we want to make sure that this particular template goes through that same rigor and gets input from industry experts like yourself. In the email that you would have received from Mark Anderson on September 11th, you would have 3 things. The first one is an information package that provides the background that you should read through to make sure you're ready to do your weighting exercise. The second is the actual PDRI facilitation package. And the third, coming in as a separate email, is a link to the online survey, such as the one that you see in the graphic here. This is where we're going to collect all of your background information, your element weighting for each of the elements in the PDRI template, and then finally your suggestions for improvement that are at the end of the process. In the background information, which is on the second page of the survey that you'll open up, this is where we need you to provide information about you. what you've done in terms of background for project management or estimating, what types of projects you've worked with, and then most importantly will be to pick a project that you want to use for the purpose of this weighting exercise. Picking a project that's very representative of the type of work that your organization does, but ensuring that it has both industrial as well as some facility or building scope is going to be very important. We want to make sure that you've got a project that allows you to test that new category for building programming and design considerations. You don't have to provide any confidential information in this survey. What we simply need you to do is describe the project well, give us an order of magnitude indication of the size of the project and how what the project outcomes were on a scale of 1 to 5. So again, no confidential information on the project required. The next thing you'll want to get ready so that you're all set to do your weighting exercise is to actually print out that PDRI facilitation package. You'll see at the front of it is an element checklist that you can help kind of make sure that you know kind of how you're progressing through it. And then you'll have the full element descriptions that go with each element. I would highly recommend that you print this out. It's going to be the easiest way for you to go through and do your weighting in offline mode. Everybody that participated in the weighting workshops also had a printed copy in front of them. Once you get into the survey, and you'll start with section 1 in the very first category in element A1, and with each element, what we need you to do is carefully consider the element description that has been written. And we need you to think about how much contingency would you apply in that particular project if that element was, first of all, level 5, poorly defined, or if it was level 1, complete definition. The other thing that we need you to do is consider any comments or feedback you have after you've reviewed that element. It's really important to us that the element descriptions are well understood, they're concise, and that they include the checklist items that are most appropriate for our manufacturing and life sciences sector. And if you have suggestions or you think there's points that aren't necessary or are redundant with other elements, that's fantastic feedback for us to consider. So let's go back to considering the weighting. So what value of contingency you apply for a 1, complete definition, and a 5, a poor definition. The stage that we need everybody to think about is that we're evaluating the level of definition at gate 3 right before full funding or authorization for expenditure. This would be the equivalent to your PDRI 3 stage and assuming that your project is about to begin detailed design. When you go to enter your information within the survey, I encourage you to think about a fairly broad range. Key thing to keep in mind that even though we've asked you to think about this from a contingency perspective, your numbers do not have to add up to 100. This is simply a way for you to have relative weighting between elements. So as an example, I just encourage you to think about a pretty broad scoring range. As we've seen in the example here, if A1 was completely defined, this person assigned a value of 1. And if it was poor definition, they assigned a value of 20. That gives you lots of room to work as you get to some of the other elements where there may not be as much of a differential. In the comments, again, just go in the elements where you have feedback that you'd like to share back with the research team. So a few important guidelines to keep in mind. Again, your contingency should represent the amount of money that would be necessary to deal with the uncertainties that you'd have in project execution stage if that element was poorly defined or if it was completely defined. So think about time, change, cost, but we need to think about it all translated into a monetary value. I think we've mentioned this before, but there is no limit to the contingency values that you assigned. But I would ask you to use integers, and please don't use negative values. The most important thing is just making sure your values are relative to each other. The other thing I would do is keep in mind that there's back and forward buttons as you go through the survey. And when we conducted the weighting workshops, at the end of each section, we encouraged all the participants to go back and review the numbers that they had entered. And if they felt that they needed to adjust those, given kind of more elements that they had reviewed, that's completely fine. You can modify it right up to the end when you press submit. Another point here is when you think about the project that you selected for the weighting exercise, there may be elements that are not applicable to your project. In the survey, and this is a technical thing that we found when we actually completed it today, most important thing is to write in the comments field NA, but you will have to put a value of some sort in the level 1 and the level 3. So if you want to put 0, 0, that's fine, but we need you to put NA in the comment field so that we're clear it's not applicable to the project, not that you don't think it's important overall. If you go back to your inbox, you might want to keep this email handy. One of the things that we encourage people to do as we went throughout the weighting workshop was to take breaks at normal parts. You're probably going to need to do this in a couple sittings. We spent better part of the day, and again, we had some dialogue and back and forth, and you may be able to do this more efficiently. But when you go through the survey, at the bottom of each page, you'll see a link to be able to save and continue later. All you have to do to go back and get back to your survey is open your email up and click on this PDRI for MLS button. That'll take you back so you can restart your survey after you've dealt with your meeting or your lunch break or whatever you have in the middle. And if you have any questions or you can't find your link, just reach out to Mark Anderson. His email is here. We'll make sure you get what you need. So just kind of a few things about how the survey is organized. You'll see a number of pages, and we've basically broken it down so that all elements within a category are grouped together on a page. And at the end of each category, when you've answered all the questions, you simply click on next and then continue on to the next category. At the bottom of the page, there's 3 important things. One is your page number, and you'll have 19 sections to work through. Next, we'll take you to the next section, and this is your save and continue later link that I mentioned. Again, if you take a break, click on the save. This makes sure that all the results you've put in so far come back to our server and that you don't lose any of the valuable work that you've been doing. When you come back and you click on that email to open up your survey again, you're going to get a window that looks something like this. You've got 2 options, and I'd encourage you to click on the link at the bottom that says click here to return where you last left off. That'll save you time in going through each of the categories. But if you happen to click on the first one, just keep in mind you need to click next to get to where you left off. Right? We're going to be able to skip the Adobe Connect part because we've gone through that already. The very last part of the survey is going to be an important one for us as well. And this is narrative, but think about these questions because you may want to keep some notes as you go. There's really 4 questions that we have here. First of all, is this a complete list for the manufacturing sector? Have we missed anything that really should be considered? We want to know what your thoughts are. The second is, are any of these elements redundant? Is there suggestions you have that would consolidate elements that are very similar or have overlap? Third question, did you encounter elements where you felt they were unclear or incomplete? Again, implementation and ability to take this and to get successful value very quickly is of utmost importance to us. So if you see elements that you're just not happy with, please indicate those for us. And then the final question will be any suggestions for improvement that you have. So that brings us to kind of the final part, and I'll just go through kind of what we explained to the rest of the group. So as a final step, after we have all of the weighting information back and we've completed our PDRI spreadsheet, we're going to be looking for volunteers that are willing to do validation testing of this new PDRI template. So we're going to be looking for people who have completed projects that would be able to give us results back using this PDRI template, so retroactively, but be able to also provide what the plan and actual costs were for that project, as well as the plan duration and the actual scheduled duration at the end. We're going to be looking for projects that have been conducted within the last 3 years, and there'll also be some validation questions to understand more about that project. But it's an extremely valuable part in our testing process, is this is what helps us understand whether we can actually look at correlations to performance in the same ways that we have with PDRI Industrial. Right? So if you have projects that you'd like to volunteer for testing, we would love to hear from you. And again, I just encourage you to reach out to Mark. You should have his email in the different correspondence. And it's not a commitment, but if you indicate to us that you've got some candidate projects, we'll make sure that you're first on the list to communicate with as that validation testing window opens up. Okay. So part here to give you some visibility to the schedule that we're working through. Again, we completed our virtual workshop today, September 14th, and we're going to be leaving the window open for offline responses for another 7 days. So our cutoff will be September 21st because we have a deadline of having our spreadsheet tool completed by October 1st. We'll have about a 3-week window open for our validation testing. It'll start around mid-October and go to early November. And with those results coming back, we'll be meeting as a research team in early December. And our objective is to have our publication submitted for review to the Construction Industry Institute by December 20th. In the first quarter, we anticipate to have a scheduled date to be able to present the results of this research team back to the sector group, as well as being able to provide our results at our Board of Advisors meeting that's scheduled for the spring of 2018. Right. Hopefully this has provided you with some good background information to get you started in your rating exercise. Again, please feel free to reach out to us here. Both Mark and I are available with any questions that you have. And I'm pretty sure once we get you started on the survey, through the first few elements, you'll be pretty comfortable in completing this exercise. And again, thank you so much for taking the time, and your contribution to this template will hopefully add tremendous value over the years to come for both you and your organization. I thank you for your time.